I'm writing lines to lift his name, no need for fame. My spirit fed, his word is spread, saves the aim. Pen to paper, truths I scribe, a soulful vibe to glorify the Most High, that's amplified. I am spreading the faith I hold so dear, for every tear he's ever near. Choirs rise on Sunday morn, his love we adorn. Each melody a testimony, hearts reborn. In every verse a whispered prayer beyond compare, to lift the hearts of those in dark despair. We testify with every note we sing, in harmony let freedom's bell ring. Rejoice and lift your voice, let the sound of praise deploy. Marching to his beat we go, face the seed we're here to sow. A standing strong through trials, love's chapter will compile. A beacon shining, grace defining across the mile. In our stories his glory shines, a light divine. Through the gospel groove his truth we move, lives alive. Each Sunday pew, a vessel lined with grace anew. Souls intertwined, the word defined, it shines on through. Lifting high the cross we bear, in solace share. Hey, hey. The hymn we breathe, in him believe, it's love we declare. We're saved by grace in this old levered place. Voice is strong in this soulful song we embrace.
Make no mistake, under President Trump's leadership and this administration, you have the right to worship freely and safely. And if I haven't been clear already, if you violate that sacred right, we are coming after you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Save News TV. I am your host, A.Z. Hubbard, coming to you reporting on Don Lemon has been busted for his alleged involvement with the church in Minnesota. That was Pam Bondi giving a update on what has happened. So let's get into this and what it entails. I want to say that we want to make sure that people understand, and some people don't realize, is that your First Amendment rights end when you encroach upon someone else's First Amendment rights. So Don Lemon can say, I was doing journalism or whatever, but he was asked to leave. So that is trespassing at the least, but he did not leave. But anyway, we're going to get into this, and I would say do not let these people put a battery in your back and you end up in jailed, hurt, or otherwise, okay? So there's a way to protest, and that if you want to protest, the people that make the laws, ICE is enforcing the laws. These people are enforcing the laws. They are just doing their job. If they wanted real change, they would go and seek out their legislators so that it can be changed in the proper manner. But let's get back to Don Lemon. This is coming from the New York Post. Don Lemon, federal charges against Don Lemon revealed shortly after Minnesota church storming arrest. So if many of you don't recall this, let us look at what happened to refresh your memory. Let's see. I'm going to refresh your memory here on this Don Lemon. Okay. we want to make sure people understand how constitutional rights work. And again, like I said, yours end when you encroach upon someone else's rights. Okay, so we don't want to be encroaching upon someone else's rights.
CNN anchor Don Lemon was arrested early Friday over the anti-ICE that stormed a Minneapolis church during Sunday service, according to his attorney and Attorney General Pamela Bondi. Don Lemon was taken into custody by federal agents in Los Angeles, where he was covering the Grammy Awards, Lemon's attorney Abby Lowell said in a statement shared with multiple reporters. He was one of 4 people arrested by federal agents early Friday in connection with the coordinated attack on City's Church in St. Paul, Minnesota, Bondi later confirmed in a statement. Lemon, who had been documenting the increasingly violent
saying he was covering
protests
it
following the shooting of Renee Nicole Good, live-streamed himself alongside demonstrators with the Racial Justice Network, storming into the city's church in St. Paul, Minnesota, as they called out resident pastor David Eastwood, whom they accused of moonlighting as the acting field office director for ICE in the North Star State. Some service disruptors chanted slogans heard at the dozens of other protests that have wreaked havoc around Minneapolis, while others specifically slandered Eastwood for supposedly misrepresenting the ideals of his faith through his support for ICE.
David Eastwood out now!
Lemon spoke with the congregation's lead pastor, Jonathan Parnell, who said the bombardment was shameful.
I mean, this is unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship.
The Department of Justice announced a probe into the demonstration at the church for potential violations of civil rights laws, specifically for interfering with Christian worshipers, according to a post on X. Harmeet Dillon, the Justice Department.
Yeah, so they wanted to make seem like, but they didn't show this part in this clip. But the pastor did ask Don Lemon and the rest of them to leave while they were in the church, but they refused to leave and they agitated further. One of the victims of the St. Paul church says agitators prevented them from getting to their children. One thought it was a shooting, and others weren't able to leave. One woman fell and was injured. Pulled from a federal affidavit dated on 1/20/2026. Victim 4 informed agents that members of the parish attempted to retrieve their children from the child care area located downstairs, but agitators blocked the stairs and the parents was unable to get to their children. Victim 4 informed agents the aisles were already narrow and that the sanctuary was occupied by agitators in the center. So, and then they go on to say that that it made it nearly impossible for parishioners to get out and leave. Victim 5 later expressed fear that agitators may have guns underneath their jackets. Additionally, when agitators began shouting, all parishioners could hear was shoot. Victim 4 recalls one agitator was threatening and aggressive and intimidating towards parishioners. Additionally, this agitator was screaming and getting in people's faces, to include women and young children. This agitator continued to scream in the faces of young children while they were crying. Affidavit writes agitators forced parishioners to flee the church out of the side door, which resulted in one victim falling and suffering an injury. So once again, like I said, and like the law says, your rights end, your constitutional right ends when you encroach upon another person's constitutional rights. You cannot encroach on another person's constitutional rights. And that is what Don Lemon did and the rest of allegedly, according to the affidavits, okay?
Worship is
The
not a public
charges.
forum for your protests. It is a space protected from exactly such acts by federal criminal and civil laws. Nor does the First Amendment protect your pseudo-journalism of disrupting a prayer service. You are on notice, she wrote. In a follow-up post, she noted that the FBI had been activated and accused the protesters of desecrating a house of worship. Lemon had dismissed calls for him to be prosecuted for joining in with the group and defended his actions as protected under the First Amendment. The MAGA administration and the fake news MAGAs are losing their mind over something that's not even true, Lemon said, claiming he had no affiliation to.
But we see that there has been there are, the affidavits. I mean,
Actions as, quote, an act of journalism.
okay, so he's saying that it was an act of journalism, but as I stated before, one's constitutional rights ends where another one begins. And not so good for Don Lemon is, as we look at it, is that although the judges decided not to sign the arrest warrant, and that was probably politically motivated because of the stance and the state and the city that it was in, which is Minnesota. But when you get a grand jury to bring down indictments, that is pretty much an airtight case. Like I said, everything is sealed. They have not released the document. But when a grand jury, because it's more than one person, there has to be overwhelming evidence to bring down a grand jury indictment. Also put into consideration that Minnesota is a liberal state. You cannot bring your rights and infringe upon someone else, especially on private property. And they were asked to leave. They refused to leave. According to the affidavits, they blocked people from getting their children. And so these are very serious charges. There was another quote unquote journalist that was also arrested. But we have to remember that if this was a lay quote unquote independent journalist, then there might be some understanding. But Don Lemon supposedly is seasoned. And that's why it's important on where you get your news. A lot of these independent journalists that's on these social media streets, they put a battery in your back and go with their emotions. They don't do any research. They tell you this happened, that happened, but they fail to look at both sides. They fail to do the research and find out what truly happened in each situation as much as possible, because they know people aren't going to do their due diligence. They're just going to listen to their commentary. But I encourage you not to let they put a battery in your back, go out and do something crazy. If you want to make change, real change about any topic, any subject, then get a pen and paper or get on your email, get on the phone and begin to call your representatives. Standing out in these streets, trying to block law enforcement from carrying out their duties, impeding them, going into private spaces, going into churches, synagogues, mosque or whatever, protesting and doing things like that. That is not the way to make change. That is a way for you to get hurt and the commentators to sit back and continue to make millions in their air-conditioned spaces, and for you to be the one on the front line. They will not be out there with you. They will tell you they will not be out there with you. But if by any chance they are out there with you, like Don Lemon, they're going to try to hide behind, quote, journalistic, quote, reporting. But as you all notice, no other reputable news organization was out there that day because they know that it was illegal. So again, I implore you all not to be ramming cars, standing, impeding, throwing objects, or anything of that nature. You have a constitutional right to carry. Yes, you do. But your constitutional right to carry, again, ends when you are impeding. So there are a lot of things that common sense will keep you safe. There's nothing wrong with peacefully protesting. But if you see somebody, if they tell you to step back, step way, way back. Don't even um, entertain trying to fight somebody, especially law enforcement, whether it is ICE, whether it's federal, whether it's state, whether it's local. Those are law enforcement officers. They are there to enforce the laws. Okay. So Don Lemon, again, has been busted. And I, for one, as a person that's been in media for over 30 years, I'm applauding it because he knew better. You know, he knew better. He has absolutely no business there. And even if he was there filming, the moment that pastor said, "I would like for you to leave," he should have stepped out right then. But no, he didn't. He wanted to argue with the pastor, First Amendment rights, and then he go throughout the congregation, still trying to interview people, harassing people. They want them out of their faces. So that's not journalism. That's harassment. But anyway, everybody, we're going to keep you posted on what's going on with this story because it is developing. And when they unseal the documents, we shall come back and talk about it more in detail. But again, word to the wise, don't let these people on these social media streets, on television, put batteries in your back and cause you to lose everything that you have worked for all your life, everything, your family, your friends, and maybe even your life. Like I said, if you disagree with a policy, the best way to make change is to begin to contact your legislators, those that write the laws, not the people that's enforcing the laws and doing their jobs. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Save News TV. You have a very blessed and prosperous day.